I've had plenty of time to dive deep into video games lately. I've tried working on my backlog, but new games seem to come into my life all the time. I did, however, finally get around to playing Super Metroid, and I was blown away by how well it still holds up today. This made me hungry for more Metroidvania, which made it the perfect time to play a game that had been on my radar for a while. Today, we're talking about Hollow Knight, and oh boy do I have a lot to say. For the uninitiated, Metroidvania games are basically platformers with a heavy emphasis on exploration. Unlike Mario or Sonic, they don't have levels or zones, but rather one cohesive world. These types of games steadily give the player upgrades that help them in combat, exploration, or both. The player can then use these upgrades to take down tough foes they just couldn't beat, or reach new areas of the map they couldn't access before. What makes Hollow Knight and other Metroidvania games unique is how non-linear these games can be. No two players will progress in the exact same order, which gives each playthrough variety and allows for many hidden collectibles and secret areas. Hollow Knight takes place in the kingdom of Hallownest, a once great society now fell to ruin, inhabited by countless species of bugs. The premise of a game all about bugs might sound gross, but this game is absolutely gorgeous. Each area is distinct due to the backgrounds and the environmental music. Some are what you expect, with subdued browns and grays, but others use bright pinks and vibrant greens. Some areas are rich with life, some are dark, damp, and deadly, and others are teeming with the remains of their past. The world definitely feels video gamey, but it still feels lived in. The game has many NPCs, each with interesting tidbits about themselves and the world around them. Not all of them are as important as the Mapmaker Cornifer or the Warrior Hornet, but all of them are memorable just from the simple dialogue exchanges they have. The richness of the world makes it desirable to explore, and luckily Hollow Knight does a great job of allowing you to. There are many areas and upgrades that players never have to discover to beat the game. The game never instructs the player to go somewhere, but the abilities they have or don't have help guide them to areas of key interest. Each area interconnects with the several others, giving the world a cohesive feel. With such a large emphasis on exploration, some players may feel lost. The aforementioned cartographer Cornifer is here to help the player. He leaves a trail of paper behind him, and if the player tracks him down, he will send them a map of the region. It is only partially filled in, however, usually directing the player to a key area that will help them advance to another area. Players don't have to explore much, but they are incentivized to, and subsequently rewarded for doing so. Players can find items that increase their maximum health and soul gauge, a mechanic we'll talk about later, Geo, the currency of Hallownest, and charms, which we'll also discuss in a bit. There are merchants located in Dirtmouth, the main hub of the game, as well as scattered throughout the kingdom. Early on, Geo is scarce, as even though every enemy drops Geo, they don't drop very much. None of the merchants' wares are necessary, but they are all useful, and I enjoyed getting to choose what I wanted to prioritize buying. There are two major facets to Hollow Knight's gameplay: platforming and combat. Most platforming sections are not particularly difficult, but they do make good use of the knight's various abilities. More difficult sections are reserved for optional areas that hold rewards. Players can also sequence break the game with some advanced platforming maneuvers, but they're not required and only add to the replayability of the game. The larger emphasis, however, is definitely on the combat. Enemies are crawling throughout every inch of the world, and the knight has his trusty nail to deal with them. The nail can be used to slash in front of the knight, as well as up or down, and can be used to bounce off of enemies or certain parts of the environment. Combat gets particularly spicy with the introduction of Soul. Soul is a unique mechanic in Hollow Knight that allows you to use various spells. You gain Soul by slashing at enemies with your nail. The most basic and useful function of Soul is healing. By holding down a button, you can focus Soul and heal one mask of health at a time. However, while focusing, you are left vulnerable to enemy attacks, creating a risk-reward mechanic. I found boss fights in particular to have limited opportunities to focus Soul, and I had to learn the boss's patterns so I could find the best moments to heal. Most bosses do stagger after taking a certain amount of damage, providing a safe opportunity to heal, but I found myself struggling to hold out until these phases and had to heal in between. Soul isn't just used for healing, however. After defeating the first boss, the player receives their first spell, with more spells found throughout the world. Spells are an alternative way to use your soul, dealing a lot of damage to enemies but leaving you with less opportunity to heal. Early on, I found myself rarely, if ever, using spells, as I wanted to conserve my soul to heal. Even late game, I tended to stick with my trusty nail, but I did become more comfortable using spells in boss fights and tough battles to get the edge on my enemies. In addition to Soul, charms help Hollow Knight stand out from other Metroidvanias. Charms are equipable upgrades that can bestow various effects, such as increasing the reach of your nail, increasing the amount of soul gained from enemies, or forming a protective barrier around the knight while focusing soul. You have a limited number of slots for charms, and each charm takes up a different amount of slots. There's never a correct setup of charms, and I enjoyed finding setups that suited me. One example was an early game charm that shows where your character is on the map, which many players will find useful. However, I opted to not use this charm, and I found myself growing more familiar with each area by comparing my surroundings to what I saw on my map. Charms add to the uniqueness of each player's journey, and help my knight stand out from everybody else's. Do you need to use charms? Technically no, but you definitely want to, as Hollow Knight is a difficult game. The bosses require patience and practice. You have to study their movements and learn from your mistakes. It is incredibly satisfying to take down a tough boss, especially early in the game when you are less experienced. Even normal enemies can cause you trouble. While a single enemy probably won't kill you, the damage can stack up if you're not careful about healing, and groups of enemies can throw several tricky elements into the mix. You'll die a lot, and you'll have to be prepared for when you die. Benches act as spawn points and allow you to switch up your equipped charms. You want to make sure to seek these out, as otherwise you'll have to make up a lot of ground. When you die, you lose all of your geo, and your soul gauge will be cracked. However, you leave behind a shade when you die, and if you backtrack to where you died and defeat it, you can fix your soul gauge and get your geo back. This system is very comparable to another notoriously difficult game, whatever that may be. However, one nice feature that this game provides is a way to summon your shade if you happen to die in a particularly sticky place. You can meet a character who will let you do battle with your shade in exchange for a particular item. This item is very rare at the beginning of the game, but fairly common by the end. This didn't quite work out for me, as I died a lot more at the beginning when I was inexperienced, but I didn't mind seeking out my shade alone, so it didn't bother me too much. Another annoyance I had is that the benches are almost never close to a boss. This means that when I die to a boss, I'd have to travel back through the world to reach the boss, which usually takes around a minute or two at worst. This may not seem like a big deal, but when the bosses are particularly difficult, and many of them are in this game, I want to jump right back into challenging them. The trek back isn't difficult, it's just annoying and wastes my time. Finally, let's talk story. The Knight's journey is rather basic, but the underlying history of Hollowness and its characters is deep and significant. By exploring the world and talking to various bugs throughout the kingdom, you'll get a sense of Hollowness' past and what occurred prior to the events of the game. Many bugs speak in cryptic dialogue, and trying to decipher what they are actually saying can be a challenge. Additionally, many of the biggest reveals in the game are optional, and you don't have to find them to beat the game. Man, I swear I am not trying to compare these two games, there's just some clear influence here. Anyways, I won't spoil anything, but I found myself both fascinated and moved by what I uncovered in this game. Before I finish this review, it is worth noting that Hollow Knight did receive 4 free DLC expansions throughout its life. The Lifeblood expansion is mostly a refinement of the main game, and the Hidden Dreams expansion adds some extra content to the main game. At the time of writing this review, however, I have not experienced the Grim Troop or Godmaster's expansions, which add some major new challenges to the game. Everything that Hollow Knight offers comes together in one incredible package. The game starts strong, and continues to delight you as you explore the depths of Hollowness. The exploration is engaging and rewarding, the combat is tight and enjoyable, and I loved uncovering the hidden lore in the kingdom. The sense of discovery and accomplishment is this game's greatest strength, and with a beautiful visual style and moving soundtrack, I was having fun all the way through. This game is a must-play if you're a fan of Metroidvanias, and showcases all the best aspects of the genre. The game is challenging yet fair, and encourages skill growth throughout its run. I loved Hollow Knight, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone interested in picking it up.